Chapter 9.2 is about parabolas, or actually all about parabolas, but the whole chapter itself looks at conic sections. Conic section is the two-dimensional graph resulting from slicing a cone. So you have this dual cone, I don't know what you would call it, but pretty much if you took a sheet of paper or something to slice and went across this way, you get a shape that looks like this, which is a parabola. If you cut across the cone, you of course get something like that, which looks like a circle. If you cut through there, you get a not so perfect circle, which shaped more like an egg is called an ellipse. And if you cut straight up and down, you get a dual parabola, which we call a hyperbola. But that's what conic sections are, is just the different types of things that come from slicing through a cone. Today is going to revisit parabolas. The lesson should be quick in terms of information, but your main focus is just pretty much on practicing enough to make the processes automatic. So let's just go ahead and get to it, because again, majority of all this stuff is going to come from practice more than anything else. By definition, a parabola is a set of all points that are the same distance from a point called the focus and a given line called the directrix. So when you pick a point here, for example, it means that the distance from here to what we call the focus is the same thing as the distance to the line, which of course you'll learn later is just a perpendicular to it. But those two distances would be the same. So same thing, that would be the same, that would be the same. We know about the parabola, we know about the vertex. The things we're going to add here are something called a directrix, which is the line that actually represents the other part, and then the focus, which actually is I want to say the focus is what they use whenever they make a satellite and put that piece in the middle that catches the part, because whenever a satellite image comes through and hits this part, it always hits the focus also. So it's like a few things that parabolas are used for that. So if you were to go into your book for chapter 9.3, you'd see all this stuff: the form of the equation, the direction of the opening, the vertex, the axis of symmetry, the focus, directrix, length of lattice rectum, which I have no clue what that is, but a lot of stuff that you get into later on, if you have to go that far, pretty much everything is the weird things we don't know are based off of A, which, as you know or should know, A is the number in front of the parentheses. So the key thing you need to memorize if you're going to memorize anything is the 1/4a, because that is going to give you the two things that we're looking for in terms of the focus and the directrix, because that's as much, since we've already seen these things before, I'm not going to go too deep on everything else. But again, focus and directrix shouldn't be so bad. But I want you to pay attention to the fact that you have now a y equals x squared version, which opens up and down. You also have an x equals y squared version, which opens right if positive and left if negative. So it is going to expand on some things, but again, it's not meant to really kill you as long as you're working like you're supposed to. Hopefully you got up to speed over the last few weeks, but like I said, as long as you're working like you're supposed to, it'll be work, but it shouldn't be stressful work. Parabolas open up in all directions for this chapter. It should not be difficult as long as you pay attention to which variable is squared. As I said earlier, you can also shift your vertex movement sideways. So instead of going right and up, you'll now go up and right. So if you went right 1, up 3, then now you would go up 1, right 3, instead of doing it the vertical direction would be the horizontal direction. So working with the focus and the directrix are as simple as long as you understand what each one is and where they should go. So if you are going to ask for the focus and directrix of this picture here, first thing you want to do is use your common sense, which, as I said, we've done this before, to recognize this opens down, which means that your focus would be in a downward direction. And so when you look at your vertex, which we should know how to find, which is -2, -4, how do you go in the downward direction? You move your y down. So we would be doing, your focus would be at -2, -4 minus, remember I said 1/4a, so it'd be 1/12. And so from there you would do your -4 minus 1/12, which you can do here. And I think they want decimals, so 4.08. So the focus would be -2, -4.08. Is that right? It is, because that's bigger than 4. And then your directrix, which is the line on the other side of it, would be moving in an upward direction. Again, you'll have to study a little bit for this, but you'll get it. It's not that bad, especially compared to what you really have to do in a lot of other things. But your directrix is a x equals equation, because again, hopefully we know now that, no, I'm sorry, this is a y equals equation, so it's y equals, and since it's going up, it means we're going to take our y value and add that same value of 1 over 12, so negative 4 plus 1 over 12, which gives me negative 3.92. That's it. That's your focus. That's your directrix. We know how to graph it. We got everything we need. The only thing that's going to get weird on this is whenever you have an x equals, because now again with a positive, it's going to open up in the positive direction, which is off to the right, which means your focus would actually be to the right side, which means the way you first off want to do is getting your vertex. Now again, paying attention to the switch. If this is your x, that's the number that goes with x. Since it's outside, we do not change it, so the 3 would stay the same, but your 4 would actually shift. So that's my vertex, which means my focus is moving to the right, which means I want to take this number and add. So it'll be 3 plus whatever 1 over 4a is, which would be 1 over 8. Again, the formula I told you to memorize, what you want to write down is 1 over 4a, because that is what you'll use to shift everything, comma 4. 3 plus 1/8 is 3.13 or 3.125, however you would choose to do that, comma 4. That would be my focus. Again, notice that that is further to the right than 3, which is why it should be there. And your directrix is going to be something like that, same distance away, but this is going to the left, which means we're going to subtract 1/8 from it. And again, based off of that, you're going to do your y equals, and again, because you're moving left, it's actually an x equation because it's going vertically, so it's not y equals, I did that anyway. X equals 3, and we're going left, so we're going to go minus whatever your 1 over 4a is, which again, because a is 2, it's going to be 1 over 8. 3 minus 1/8 is 2.88. And that is that's pretty much the only new information here. So focus, directrix, we should know how to put it into vertex form because we did that earlier in another chapter. So the rest of this should just be review, but this is where I said it should be quick. Keep in mind, first thing you want to do is identify your vertex. First off, actually now you want to make sure you identify what direction it goes. And since this is y, this is up and down. So your vertex is 4, 1, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And then if you remember what I told you, this works like the slope, which means negative means over 1, down 1, back 1, down 1. There's your u. That's your parabola. And yes, I've tested it on your Math XL, and for the most ones that I tried it on, worked just fine. So as long as you remember that in vertex form, that number is like your slope, your rise over run from your center point or from your vertex. Everything else should be good. And this is why I said these lessons will be quick, because now it's just practice. So looking at this one again, your vertex here is -1, -6. So -1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's my vertex. And then this 2 means over 1 up 2, because remember it works like slope, over 1 up 2, and so your graph kind of does something like this. And I don't need you to go too far into all that stuff. Again, we've already seen parabolas, and at this point the main thing we want to do is make sure we kind of view it in the idea of being in the family of conic sections, not just something random in space. Here again, there's an x equals, which means your vertex is not -1, 4. It is 4, -1, because remember the x goes with x and the number inside with y goes with y. And you'll learn a lot more of that once we get to the other things. So 4, -1, 1, 2, 3, 4, -1. Now when you're looking at the negative, what that means, it would usually mean it opens down, but it means it opens in the negative direction, which means that it's going to open, since y, this is your positive and this is your negative, because in your x is positive, negative. Negative means it opens this way, positive means it opens that way, negative means it opens this way, but again, it's -1. So instead of going back 1, up 1, you'll go up 1, back 1, down 1, back 1, and you'll go this way. And that'll be your graph. So again, that's pretty much it. That's the only, again, I don't think I can give you a lot of these things and really get anything outside of just giving you time to practice. So just make sure you understand that shift. So here, x equals all this. This is a x equals means just it opens left and right. Let me change this to a +3 because we need to see both. Your vertex is going to be -1, 2 because again it's an x equals, which means that's your x number, that's your y number. -1, 2. And then from there, 3 was your part. So instead of going over 1 up 3, you're going to go up 1 over 3 because again it's positive, which means you want to open towards the positive direction. So you also go down 1 over 3, and then that would give you the picture that you're looking for. And again, I'm not grading you based off of how your parabola looks. You just need to make sure you have the key points. You need to make sure you show me everything I'm looking for. I think the people who lost points on that stuff typically lost it because they just drew a parabola with 1 point and they did that, and I don't know where in the heck any of those other points came from. So I at least need the vertex. I need the 2 points off of that, and any information that needs to be seen should be good on that. And then the last thing, of course, is the completing the square. If you don't know how to complete the square, go back to that. I think this is the email I sent you on Friday with 4.7. I believe it was 4.7. I don't know though, but check that out for yourself. But the bottom line is, the thing you want to do is make sure when you do that first is that you isolate your y. So it'll be -y² minus 6y and then +5, because if you remember that, that's part of our answer there. And so the next thing you want to do, because we really didn't do it a lot, is you got to have a regular y². So we take the negative off. But the trick with this is making sure that when you take the negative off of that, you also take it off of the 6y. And then here's the other thing you got to remember. If you put a number here, it is positive. It's going to be positive, but it's being turned into a negative. And in order to offset a negative number, you need to add here, but we'll talk about that in just a second. Either way, if you understood that video that you watched on completing the square, then you understand is y plus 3 squared. 3 comes up as a 9. 9, which is actually a -9, gets offset with a +9, which means +14 is going to be it. If you had to graph that, you would go vertex of 14, -3. You would be going up and left, down and right, down and left, and graph would look something like this. Because again, it's an x equals y. But that's it. I mean, for the most part, that's it. I think this is probably going to be your longest lesson. And the only reason it's a long lesson is because I had to talk about the Directrix to focus, and also just the general process that you're going to be doing a lot. So if you don't like this process, you might want to get over it, because this is in every single section. It just gets different for every type. So the majority of your focus should be on understanding the homework. Finishing is fine, but I think we understand there's many different ways to get 100% on your homework, but making sure that you can actually do that same thing on the test or on the quiz is really where it's at. So just make sure you can do it without using your notes. Make sure you can do it without having to go back and look at anything again, and everything else should work out. But other than that, go ahead and go to your Math Excel, and I'll talk to you a little bit later. Good luck.